Florentino spoke and presented his campaign. Welcome, Madridistas. How is everyone? Let's move on to Florentino, because earlier we made the video about Riquelme, which is already uploaded here on the channel. Is the previous one. I'll put it at the top right of this one. I think it will appear there, but if not, that's how it is. At the end of this video, one of the two will be overlaid on the screen. It will be one of those two. Because, well, we try to give the same coverage to both, naturally, and to give our opinion about each one. That's what we're here for. Well, after today's presentation by Riquelme, which was very targeted at the club members, what Florentino Perez did today was address them. Address the club members as well, of course, but also to talk in general about what his candidacy is about. And listen, I don't think there will be many more events. I don't think he's going to do many more, because we start from the idea that he doesn't need to, or he thinks he doesn't need to, or we all thought he didn't need to. But if the other candidate starts offering things and starts hitting where it might hurt him a little, even though many think it doesn't even bother him, right? But starting to get into those gaps, those demands from the members at the assemblies over these 20 years that the other one has also been taking note of. Well, the other one, and not just the other one, but also what they've told him he had to say. Well, maybe in this candidacy, Florentino Perez's, he'll start. Will he start to take it more seriously or not, to make more public appearances? But of course, it's just that it's been very powerful. It was very powerful to have Ronaldo Nazario there, Piri, the honorary president, Solari, and Roberto Carlos, right? Of course, Roberto Carlos, Piri, and Solari are at Real Madrid, already inside the club. Nobody or very few people expected Ronaldo, right? And the fact that they had him there personally. Real Madrid already inside the club. Nobody or very few people expected Ronaldo. And the fact that he came out and later said, well, but the club members, who should be very grateful, the shareholders in general and so on, Real Madrid, come on, it's very powerful. It's almost more powerful than everything Florentino has done. It's interesting. And we're going to move on to comment here with some tough attack against his opponent, because the other one, of course, has been attacking things about Florentino's presidency, about Florentino's future plans, with more or less success. For example, referring to using the word privatization. I've said here that I understand why he does it, because it's a bombastic word, but it won't be entirely that. But, of course, he might fall into some contradiction, but I think Florentino Perez also falls into some contradictions when it comes to it. And today, he hasn't explained it. Saying that the club belongs to the members, and at the same time saying, but we're going to sell 10%, so explain it to me a bit more, right? He still hasn't explained it today, and I don't know if he will. And I think he's not going to give the opportunity for there to be a debate, for people to ask him to explain it. The other day, naive as I am, I said, hey, maybe this campaign is awesome. Why would Florentino tell us in advance all those things he was going to say later in the assemblies? And, you know, I'm afraid he won't. And I'm also afraid that sports-wise, I used to cover him too. About the presidency, will he say that Mourinho is his coach? They haven't asked him any questions yet. Maybe at a later event some members did, but I don't know. When asked about his new coach, is it Mourinho? Let's see what he says. Done? Pedrerol questioned him, but no, he didn't answer. He didn't confirm anything, of course, but that's why the other one can slip through the cracks, through the gaps. Since this isn't about sports, it's more about whether things will stay the same. If Nico Paz, Victor Munoz, yes, Victor, and maybe a few more signings arrive. Of course, it can't be any other way. It's just peace. Yes, Nico, naturally. Summer. We don't all shoot ourselves, right? But of course, if he doesn't say anything, the other one can take the opportunity to mention the names of those signings he says he has secured. I'm talking about Enrique Iglesias. And that's why the campaign's life will give it to you day by day. And it's in the hands of the candidate, who is the one that has to move the most, the one that has to attack the most, the one that has to bring up names and so on. So Florentino says more, since if the other person does nothing, Florentino won't say anything. I think today it's an amazing introduction letter, like, gentlemen, I've achieved this. Here are the titles. Forbes says this, we're the best. And yes, he's right about many things. Although about the 2 years without winning anything, well, he doesn't really mention that much. Of course, but that's it. He practically doesn't need anything else. Florentino Perez, but he has attacked the other one in something that could really hurt him. And that's basically a summary. And now let's go over everything he said by looking at him and saying, and who are you? Or better yet, who do you think you are, right? A 37-year-old comes here and you claim your company is amazing. Let's examine it and discuss his comments about it without mentioning Riquelme or naming the company. Anyway, but let's be clear, and I want to emphasize this about selling the 10%, nothing. About the sports side, nothing either. And in a proper campaign, it should be encouraged that one of the two candidates, no matter how much of a president he is, also has to talk about this. But of course, hey, what is it going to be? What is your plan going to be? We've already seen that the past has been glorious, not the last 2 years, but the past was glorious. And we already know that you signed the best in the world. Yes, yes. But what about this summer? Because if there's a third summer, if we get to the summer, a third season without titles, none of us will survive here. I mean, we'll end up killing each other, of course. And Florentino will have to say something about that, I suppose. But anyway. Well, anyway, this was the climax of that moment with Florentino saving the day. Florentino, and Ronaldo saying that people love him a lot and so on. And I insist, very good. In terms of staging, fantastic. Plus with the Florentino-like sobriety of Real Madrid and all that. They showed the video beforehand. In that sense, good. Well, he started by saying, I called elections because I detected a campaign against me. And I say, but is that a reason to call elections? Excuse me, is that a reason to call elections? If there was a campaign against you, it would continue. And no one would remove you as Real Madrid's president since you had 3 years left. We really don't stop to think about that very much. We said, look, he was just angry. He lost his head. He called for elections as if to say, well, if you want to get rid of me, then come on. Whoever wants to run, go ahead, whoever you are, right? And you say, yeah, but what's the need? What's the need? If the takeover of the presidency of Real Madrid happens just because one day you're distracted in your chair there in Valdebebas or at the Bernabeu, and some people come and take it from you, right? With swords or with weapons. So you say, yeah, well, I'll have to defend myself. But here, if the member was going to vote in 3 years anyway, what's the need? Is there a campaign against Florentino? I think there is. In some media outlets, of course, Marca, but they've been out to get him for a long time, of course. Is there a pro-Florentino campaign? Yes, there is too. El Chiringuito, El Español, and really El Chiringuito. Well, not many people, but some whom I know from there I care about, some of them. In El Español too, some of them. But the thing is, they're pro-Florentino. And there are several media outlets that are like that. And listen, there's a lot of pro-Florentino noise, and they're pointing fingers at the others. And well, anyway, if there's a campaign against you, there's also a campaign in your favor, right? Look, here on this channel, we've called out the campaign against him. And well, anyway, let's see. If you follow the channel, I'm the last person you'd suspect of not doing it, and I'll keep at it. In the next video, I'll discuss that Negreira report Marca just revealed. But what is it? Stay tuned. That's why it's one of the things that bothers me most about Riquelme. Either he's very forceful about the Negreira thing and stops saying that Madrid has wasted time. Okay, Madrid has wasted time, man. But what are you going to do? Or I'll start thinking the worst, which I'm already close to doing. Of course, there are no black and white answers here, but there are a lot of gray areas in this. But come on, about the campaign, mainly my point against this is that nobody was forcing you. Sorry. There was always a campaign, but no one forced you. Others, because others want to be in charge of Real Madrid. Yeah, but who is it? Same as in the press conference, the media. Are there people who want to meddle in Madrid? Of course. Could Tebas be behind it? For sure. But as long as you're there, what are you afraid of? But why are you afraid of Tebas? Then on top of that, he mixes Tebas with the fact that we have to sell 10% because Tebas doesn't want us. He wants to take something away from our assets or something like that. I explained that here at an ordinary members meeting, and then he was going to call an extraordinary one. He never called it. That was in November. An unusual December. He didn't call it because sports weren't going well. If they had been, he would have called to propose this. It's also true that proposing the change in the club's structure is very complicated. And there must have been someone inside the club who didn't agree with it. Someone even told him, wait, doing this is a real mess. But well, then about others wanting to be in charge at Real Madrid. Of course, he kept going down that path, so we're already narrowing it down. And he clarified that among those who want to be in charge at Real Madrid, who are not just them, but among those who want to be in charge at Real Madrid, are the same people from Calderon's board. This is when he starts mentioning the other candidate. To the board of directors of Ramon Calderon, the president, with whom we went through a terrible embarrassment, Florentino said, and I think so too, at that assembly in 2009, it was at the beginning of 2009, right? Those people were a disaster. Now it's the sons and brothers-in-law and maybe grandchildren. Grandchildren are fine. But we should also remind Florentino that Calderon was his board member. Calderon was a board member under Florentino. I mean, and then Calderon wins the elections because he had already been a board member under Florentino before. So if he's blaming the fact that there are guys from that board of directors who now want to run, well, in your case, there was a guy who became president, and look at the mess he made. What, man? I don't know. But anyway, okay. They're basically coming to take advantage of Madrid. They're coming to take advantage of Madrid, which is a direct accusation that the other guy will have to answer. And he finishes it off. He finishes it off by, without mentioning any names, neither the person nor Enrique Riquelme nor his company, Cox, let's just name them all, but without saying names, he says, someone who asks for 54% annual interest for his companies while hiding it from the National Securities Market Commission. Thank you. Let me tell you, you lack the solvency to lead Real Madrid. Let me tell you that. That is a veiled criticism, although I think it's quite clear, but without mentioning names. And just dropping it there a little indirectly about the fact of, do you know who is running? If you appoint him president, the instability you will have here with a guy who, well, seems like a good businessman, but isn't really that much. Damn, that's a big one. That's a big one. I don't know. This thing about the 54% interest, maybe it's true. Maybe the other guy is a fraud who, in the interview with Juanma Castaño, says he pawned his father's watch, and in the end, he didn't even pawn it. I don't know. I don't know. But that's how it's been going. And he puts the cherry on top by saying, so now we understand why the banks wouldn't give him the guarantee. And here, we don't know if they wouldn't give this man the guarantee, because it's either him and his company, or they wouldn't give him the guarantee because there was some pressure so that he wouldn't get the guarantee. The thing is, let's say, in this world, we believe anything. Look at Zapatero, the goofy face he has, and what they're saying about him, that he was leading at an international level. I mean, here, even the dumbest person makes watches, you know? And besides, neither Florentino nor those around him seem foolish, right? So why can't we believe there was pressure to prevent this man from getting it? Was it because of the bank's guarantee? Florentino is a guy who's very well connected because he also has great people skills. And because he knows that in football politics, you have to be friends with everyone. Even though he has enemies, he has very few enemies. But wherever someone can have influence, his reach can extend to many places which we might not even know about. The other day we left it at that. We don't know, but just so there's no confusion, because then people will start commenting, are you saying that Florentino pressured those banks? No, I'm not saying that. Since Florentino says the other guy is broke and that's why they didn't give him the guarantees, there will also be people who think, damn, maybe he's not that broke, and maybe they closed the doors of the Spanish banks to this guy because... And to say that this can't be a hypothesis is not knowing how the world works. There's someone with power who has put on the pressure. It could be like that. I don't know. I don't know. And to that, he contrasts the fact that Madrid is, thanks to his presidency, which is true, a leader in international rankings. And, well, Forbes tells us that we are the most valuable club in the world and so on, which is very good. But I'll say again a phrase from my friend Frank Carrillo. We don't go to Cibeles because of Forbes. I haven't seen anyone celebrating there for the second year straight just because we're the world's most valuable football club on the Forbes list. So Florentino basically concludes, regarding the attack on the rival, we have to shield ourselves against those who attack our assets. And then he started to explain himself in a way against the attacks without mentioning the name of the person who attacked him, which was Riquelme, about the issue of seats in the stadium and whether there are enough or not, because there is more demand for season tickets and so on and so forth. He says, well, the stadium has a limited number of seats. I wish it wasn't like that. And we are fighting against ticket scalping. I should also say that the old Bernabeu, I like the modern one more, the way it turned out, especially on the inside. On the outside, I don't like it as much, but on the inside, I really like it. But it's a little smaller than the previous one. It's just that fewer people fit than in the previous one because they've added more boxes as well. Thinking more about the fans with money who can reserve those boxes than about the regular fans, that also has to be said. He says they'll make a social club, though he wasn't clear. We're creating a social club in Valdebebas, not improvising, since we've planned it for a long time. And we're also going to set it up next to the technology district that we already have prepared and planned, which is going to give Real Madrid a lot, and so on. The thing about the Infinite Bernabeu with Apple, the glasses to see what the Infinite Bernabeu would be like, are at the headquarters in front of the Bernabeu. And that's going to allow the stadium to be expanded virtually for anyone, anywhere in the world, so they can feel what it's like to be inside the stadium. It won't be the same, but it could be similar. I totally agree. The Infinite Bernabeu sounds fantastic to me. And here he also touched on a sore spot where we say the other one maybe doesn't go any further, which is with the Negreira issue. All in all, absolutely. I completely agree with Florentino. I won't stop with Negreira. It's surprising that nothing happened to a club that paid 8.4 million to the referee's second in command. And he says, we're going to go all the way. The question is always the same, and it's the one the other guy uses to attack him. And we've been saying it here for months. Why didn't you go against them more forcefully before? Because you were in bed with Laporta over the Super League issue, who has also boasted about the Super League. And in this, Florentino is also largely right. By winning at the ECJ against UEFA, maybe the Super League won't happen, but perhaps they've reached some agreements with UEFA that we'll find out about later. We'll find out what they are. Then we'll be able to judge it later. He says that the dossier for UEFA, they're about to deliver it. He's been saying this since when? Since November, right? He said it again, I think in January, and now he's saying it again. But he also said 2 weeks ago that he was going to deliver it last week. And from next week to last week, and he still hasn't delivered it. So let's see if they finally finish the dossier, because I don't know how many more things there have to be in the dossier, because the season is over. Besides, I don't even care about this year's refereeing mistakes, the dossier. The dossier has to be based on the fact that a club was paying 8.4 million to the second in command of the referees for 2 decades, period. That's it. But anyway, they should have done it a long time ago to UEFA and FIFA, so they would act beyond the criminal case. But anyway, that's it. And that's basically it. And then the big move with Ronaldo and a triumphant Florentino who usually wins. I insist. And besides, he has plenty of reasons to say, hey, listen, I'm still the most important president in the history of Real Madrid. Look at these 25 years and everything we've achieved and so on, but there are a lot of little holes and a lot of things to criticize because it's not all black and white here. There are things to criticize about Florentino, for which a member in 20 years with money has said, damn, I'm going to run, and wants to challenge him. Which deserves, I think, at least a debate. He's not going to accept it, and there are a lot of people who are going to go in with their eyes closed to vote for Florentino, but I'm a member and I listen to many others, and we agree that, first, it's not a bad thing for a member to come forward and say everything that maybe has been said to him in the assemblies over these 20 years. And also, it seems like he could be a man with the ability to be a good manager. Maybe not for now, but for the future. To give Florentino at least a little bit of competition to also improve his management. That's what I think, but well, some people will call you a traitor. Hope everything goes well for you. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, share, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.